Let's see, am I showing up on here? No, I don't think I'm live yet. Oh, I am live. Okay. What's up? Hello, everybody. It is good to see you. Good to see you. I am Aleron Kong. If you guys don't know, I write the Land series in God's Eye and soon to be putting out a third series, Omega Madge. It's good to see you guys. I know some of you thought that I had disappeared, but no, just a lot of the face on my face had disappeared. Shout out to Geneva and all the other awesome people that are making Guildify Con happen again. You know, we went from being like three dudes, like tossing around ideas, to now we've got like so many amazing authors and like thousands and thousands of thousands of awesome bands. So appreciate it. Okay, so what you guys want to hear from me is when is the Land Book 9 coming? If you haven't heard before from my lives or anything like that, I am about to publish a third series called Omega Madge, which is in the AKU, the Aleron Kong universe, aka the Labyrinth universe. And that'll be coming out soon. It ties in, it is basically intersecting and overlapping. All the different series are going to add up to a beautiful culmination. And that'll be coming out soon. And then the Land Book 9 will be coming out after that. It is called The Land Mayhem. And for those of you that don't know, because it's still up in secret, you will see many other chaos seeds and going to be diving into how that whole magic system works and ties into the overall sort of overarching story of it. So I hope that you guys will enjoy that. Other things that are happening with me, as you can see, if you've seen me before, I am now 70 pounds down, which feels very good and awesome. And yeah, let's see what else is going on. We had Dragon Con that happened recently. Got to hang out with a lot of awesome people. Shout out to Geneva for Lit RPG Under the Sea, which was amazing. She got together with Sound Booth Theater and Matt Denneman, who was #1 in the world, which is also awesome. And yeah, that's what's going on. I am trying to find the comments on here, G, and I don't seem to be finding the. Okay, there we go. Boom. All right, so let me give some shout outs. Sharon Saltz, always good to see you. Richard Castro, Chris Paintner, D- Dominic Gonzalez Jr., just to name a few. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer those. We were gonna have Nick here. Sadly, he had some things that came up, but he sends all of his love to you guys, and we will have him out on just a random live on the page sometime soon. And let's see. Shout out to the Miss Villager who got a new puppy named Crom, which is awesome. Which is very cool. Hmm. So yeah, I can just sort of talk about things that are happening on my side, but I'm happy to answer questions. I know that we don't necessarily we don't get to see each other as much, honestly, because of this, and kind of just I don't know. I hit 40. Since I don't have any questions, I'll just tell you about my journey. I'm 41 now, turning 42 this year. I hit 40, and luckily, I had already had my midlife crisis in my 30s. So I totally recommend getting it out of the way early if you can. So when I hit 40, it wasn't like a, oh my God, what does this all mean? And my mortality kind of thing. Because, like I said, I'd sort of stared that into the face. And the culmination of all that anxiety is the land, which I'm assuming if you're here, you'd like them. So hopefully you've enjoyed my existential crisis and how it manifested into these worlds. Um, but yeah, so like when I hit 40, I was like, you know, it's still a milestone though, right? Like 40 is definitely a significant number. What do I want it to look like? And I tried to really think about like what I valued and what I was sort of what I wanted the next 40 years, ideally the next 80 years to look like. Um, and I came up with three things. And I've been sort of just living in like, you know, as opposed to being like, oh, I'll get around to it. I was like, no, I'm going to be the dude that actually gets to it. And I've sort of been living in accordance with those things. So the very first thing that I realized is comes from like, you know, the old Carl Sagan quote from Contact, where, you know, she's looking at the alien. She's like, why would you take the time to reach out to us? And he says, in the billions of years of life, in all of our searching, the only thing we found to make the emptiness worthwhile is each other. And that always resonated with me. And while I do agree that people can also be hell, if you've ever been to the DMV or an airport or on social media, I also think that, like many things that sort of seem to appear in the universe, the problem is also the answer. I think that people are the thing that make this whole jam worth it. There's no point in a win unless you can share it with other people. There's no point in living a life where you only live for yourself. It's an inherently a hollow existence. Now, I'm a big believer in keeping your tribe small if you want to keep it small, or more expansive if you want to keep it expansive, but I don't think there's actually true meaning without other people in how whatever modality you do it. You don't need to be a super extrovert. But I don't think we're meant to, as a species, be alone. So the number one thing for me when I turned 40 is I wanted to deepen connections with people that I cared about and ideally make some new connections. And by deepen, it didn't mean like that I need to be having discussions about Descartes and Thoreau and the unbearable lightness in being, but it did mean that like I want to be a present force in the lives of people that I love so that they can talk to me, they can touch base, we can shoot the shit, we can do whatever we want to do. And I actually know. I don't want to like wake up and like be like, oh, I haven't talked to such and such in 10 years, even though I say that like they matter to me. For me, I think that relationships are almost organic things that are in the immaterial plane, but you have to feed them, you have to nurture them, and then you'll get like, great yields from that. Potentially, maybe not. Um, Everyone's killed a houseplant. Sometimes it doesn't always work out. So the number one thing for me was connecting with old friends, maybe making some new ones. And honestly, I gotta say, I feel like that's worked out. I've been talking with friends, had amazing memories, amazing photos. Also had some really real conversations where people were like, wow, I felt so alone, even though I have a bunch of people. No one has taken the time to ask me that. Um, so I recommend doing that in your own life, even if you just do it with one person that you love, just being like, take them out for a beer, go for a hike. Don't push an agenda, but just be like at the end of it, and I'm here to talk. I really, really mean it. Make the eye contact. Like, and we can not talk, or if what you get out of the social interaction is really just vibing, watching the game and just literally not being verbal, I still think that's a fellowship. And so that was the first thing that I've been doing. The second thing that I've been doing is I was like, I just want to be a more awesome version of myself. I like want to do cool things that I've always wanted to do. Always put aside. Like I don't know if you can see over here. There is a guitar. That is my mom's old guitar that I think she maybe played twice. It has been sitting in my house forever. As you can see, as it's draped on there, still not opened it up, but I'm going to. And I'm doing other things. Like I am learning now how to cook more, something I always wanted to do. And I gotta say, like, I'm really enjoying the dishes. I almost feel like I've ranked up. Like, yeah, my skill level's gone up, but I've definitely gone from a novice to an initiate because, like, if I smell a spice, my mind starts making connections that it didn't make before. It's like, ooh, this would go really good with such and such, or ooh, I remember a meal that I had here, or like, going down like, YouTube holes and or like talking to chefs. It's like, oh, I can put these things together, and like the act of creation of creating a meal and then providing it to people is something that is definitely part of my Tao. It's part of my path. The same way creating this Miss Village sort of community, outside of the books, but in real life is definitely part of my path. People that come to my house, it's very important to me that, and I take a lot of pride that when they leave, they're like, "Oh, I felt like I was just at home," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's sort of my jam." So like doing things like that, I now not only make the perfect margarita, but I make damn near the closest perfect espresso martini. And any of you that say you don't like them are liars because everybody likes espresso marts. Okay. So like that's the second thing that I've sort of been focusing my energy on my personal path. And yes, it's very cool that they do these things. Did you guys know that you can? I'm gonna open up your life too. That you can get, yeah, you get lasers. You can get sad. You can get some rainstorms. Or is that? Oh no, that's so we got to do for rainstorms. Boom. Yeah, these are cool things that the Facebook thing is doing, which I love. And I think if we do this, maybe we get a party. Does that happen? Yeah. Okay. So you heard it here, folks. So anyway, um, first thing, connecting with people. Um, Second thing, becoming a more awesome version of myself. And the third thing being, I want abs on a boat. I don't want to own a boat, but I would love to have abs go ha ha at the front of a boat. at some point in time. I'm not quite there. I don't have the over extra large keg on my belly anymore, but I'm moving in the right direction, so I feel good about that too. All right, so with all that being said, those are sort of like what I've been like the things that I've decided that I was going to prioritize for this decade, and honestly, I'm happy about every single one of them. Um, and while it is a joke, like the abs on a boat, I will say that I know I've talked to you guys about my physical journey. I've talked about how like I was exercising, that felt better, and tried to eat better, and blah blah. But for me, it was definitely the Munjaro that really shifted it around. And I'm sorry because of the site we lived on. I'd be very clear. This is in no way recommendation from a medical doctor for you to get on this medication. I just don't mind sharing on a personal tip that this has been part of my journey, and I feel like it's positively impacted me. Knock on wood, nothing's coming around the corner. But I never thought that I would be able to feel this way again. I feel so good, and I'm just so thankful. And I'm so thankful that some of my friends and family who have been on it, like my mom at the age of 70 is down 35 pounds. And literally when I saw her, I'm like, oh my God, you look like a different person. But I also just had this like weight relieved from my chest that like I think every single time I got a call from my mom or my dad, which you don't always want to pick up, but I did because I'm like, what if it's that call? And honestly, I don't really fear that as much anymore. So again, I'm just very thankful about that happening, and it's been huge for me. And with all that being said, being in a good emotional space, I've been writing nonstop, and I've been wanting to like. For me, I feel like the land was just this perfect confluence of moments. It was perfect confluence of Lit RPG being new. It was like me being in a place where I had the time and the energy to pour into this. I almost needed to. It was like therapy writing these books. I've said to you guys many times before, it feels like it almost saved my life being able to be involved in an act of creation, being able to be involved in an act of creativity where I never really considered myself a creative person before, partially because when you grow up with an Asian mom, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the stereotypes, but they're real. Like she was like, "Why did you get an 89? You're not a Bijan, you're an Asian." Like we were math and science were heavily influenced, which I'm big into math and science. I mean, clearly I write lit RPG. But yeah, like sort of being I found this like perfect space. And I wrote these books, didn't even intend for anyone to read them at first. But they did. And I found you guys, and you found me, and then you guys found more of each other. And you guys helped me create this not only these books, but again, this community that like has literally helped babies be born onto this planet, that have been there for other people that would have just been strangers during the harshest times. The personal emails that people write to me that I'm gonna spend some time just retrying to respond because I feel like I've fallen off on that. But how I've been able to be pivotal in the lives of people that I never would have touched before. It's very humbling. It's very awesome. Uh, and then it got bigger and bigger, and oh my God, and Wall Street Journal and million copies sold and all this other stuff. And honestly, it kind of got away from me. It started feeling not fun anymore. It started feeling like I was beholden to the dickheads that write in nasty comments. And even though you awesome people far outweigh them, it started feeling like I just it's like I could read 100 positive reviews in a row, and then that one would just sort of stick in here, which was very surprising me because I usually don't give a crap what other people think. Um, and but I definitely agree with the Badu line where she's like, "I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit, so be nice." Like I get it. It is very personal and intimate, almost creating these worlds, which is then a little bit of a strange because then you're sharing it with the entire world. But it does feel like that. Feel the characters feel real to me. I can have conversations when I write scenes. They feel like real people that I'm just sort of like they're already alive. I'm just sort of enabling that. So it stopped feeling exactly right, which is why I decided to sort of take a step back because I didn't have an answer about like, well, how do I make it feel magic and make it feel whatever. I was just like, I don't know. I know that I don't want to create it if it's not, if it's feeling like work, if it's feeling like I'm having to turn out, if it's feeling like I'm more concerned about people's responses than I am about just creating art that really did it. And that's also where this sort of segue of like, well, I hit 40 and I was like, well, what do I want? And I decided to just sort of have faith. I was like, well, how about I just do things that I think are inherently positive and healthy? Um, and then maybe the magic will flow, and it did. It just did. It's like when I write now, it's like, oh my God, this is so much fun. And I will go back and read stuff that I've written before. I'm like, oh my God, that was hilarious. And some stuff I'm like, yeah, that didn't quite land. Let's sort of smooth that out. Um, but it feels good. It feels the same way. And I just really hope that I'm able to share again, just a little bit of the joy that I'm having creating when you guys read it. I hope that you guys get to experience some of that because that's awesome. Um, so anyway, all that being said, that's why there has been a gap. But like the book, I mean, honestly, almost probably the first two books in this new series because of how quickly I'm writing now and how I'll probably will need to break it up, are done. And it's tied together like pretty much exactly the way I wanted it to, and is sort of it's gonna flesh out the other series while you're reading this new one, and it's very exciting for me. So that's what's been going on. All right, so anyway, I've been talking to you guys' ear off. Mm, Let me see if I can get to some of these. All right, so first of all, shout out Hector Andrade, Gnomes Ruled Around on Facebook, user Libor Vasetti. Good to see you too. Let's see. JD, let's see.
Hey,
JD
Aleron.
Glasgow.
I'm
Hey,
interrupting because you can't see the questions on here. I have the questions pulled aside. Do you want me to read some of these questions off
no,
for you?
no. Are these the things that are lighter now? Because I think I can see the comments now.
Do you see one
Okay.
that says starred? Because the comments are
Yes.
coming in. Starred is all your questions.
Okay, I will handle that. Appreciate
All
you. All right, I got it. All right. So Sharon So says, if a pregnant woman drank luck elixir constantly through her pregnancy, would that increase the chances that her offspring would have an ability? Yeah, it definitely would. I mean, luck is this ephemeral thing that I actually expand a lot more on, like why there are 9 attributes, how they sort of tie into what the intrinsic meaning of a person is, and their intrinsic whatever. So it definitely would. But luck is ephemeral. So it could translate in them having an ability, but you cannot control luck. So it could also translate into them, I don't know, being more attractive or being kinder or just having an initial horrible event that then triggers a better version for their future loved ones that maybe aren't even alive yet. And then also you have to remember that the chaotic aura of all the chaos seeds are sort of very intrinsic to that. I'm trying to make sure that I'm not giving away spoilers that I know that you don't yet. But yes, the answer would be yes. Okay. So basically says asking, will the audiobooks come out soon after the hard copy release? I think so. I'm trying to really grade that out right now. So maybe they will, for the first time, I'll be able to release at the same time. I think I'll be able to pull that off. And yeah. So next Facebook user asked, is Nick signed on to narrate the new series? I'm actually, so that's sort of up in the air. Nick is, again, I'm so lucky to work with him. He's super duper awesome and just an amazing person. If I haven't said that enough, but I really like the idea of adding new voices to new series for several reasons. One, um, I feel like the more artists that I work with that are also highly dedicated to the craft, like the more I'm creating something that's larger than the sum of its parts. Again, so lucky to work with Nick. But I'd say a lot of the things that make the Land audiobooks so successful are like the banter that we have, the friendship that we have in real life, the way that we like bat things back and forth. I will literally write characters now and add details. It's like, well, how do you expect me to do this? I was like, I don't know. Sucks for you. Ha! And like his wife was like, yeah, get him. So it's sort of up in the air. I am still interviewing other narrators as I sort of just expand my own education on it because I'm pretty sure I have undiagnosed ADD and I don't ever really personally sit down to listen to audiobooks and sort of seeing who's going to fit. But maybe I don't know. We'll see. All right. Tristan simply saying, is Alma going to evolve every time? All right, so that is a spoiler. Shrapnel popcorn. That's what we do. We will not be talking about that. All right. Jadarius Defender Fur says, has Richard been earning war points to the monsters and then in Mayhem, and his Army of One skill should be active? So Army of One is definitely active, and I expand into that in Mayhem, how that manifests and how that's going to tie into his ability to be a war leader for the war that's coming to the Mist Village. All right. Sharon Spell says, "Are the Ashtalker clan a part of the Basilisk Alliance? I need to settle a debate." That is a. So I will say that I am leaning a little bit more for the first time into the politics that goes into the land. So that will be coming up, but it's not as simple as a yes or no. So I hope that I in no way was helpful right there, Sharon. All right. All right. Tristan Sibley says, "Can we get a hint on what focus the Richards might get?" No. Femi Ben Najima, it's good to see you. Is there time travel or time magic in the land? There is every type of magic in the land, and as I have referenced that time is a higher energy that is in the land. All right, so Richard says, did I say when the third series get released or who the narrator would be? So I already sort of touched on the narrator. I am interviewing people right now, and the third series will be released soon-ish. And book 9 will be coming after that. God's Eye 2 will be coming after that, but that's the order of how things are going to go. Is Richard ever going to meet with his gamer friends or find himself? All right, so strap in the popcorn. You will be seeing Chaos Seeds. That's all I'm going to give you. All right. And I will say that as I'm writing these various series, the MCU, which I grew up with and very pivotal part of like who I am, their ability to interweave and also, honestly, the Star Wars novelizations and how they're able to interweave stories, how some stand alone and some come back and some can come back multiple times is something that I always found to be extremely vital and interesting and awesome and random crossovers, like even Buffy the series. So the things that I love are the things that I'm going to be trying to show my love to y'all with. So you take that for what it is. Do you have any? All right. So Ryan Max says, do you have any advice for new authors trying to put their work out to public for the first time, getting all different kinds of feedback? Okay, so obviously you will get all different kinds of feedback because that is a very, very broad question. If I'm going to give you a couple just sort of bullet points that hopefully are seeds that will grow with you. One, write a story that you want to write. I think that author that feels joy when they write comes across in the page the same way you can hear someone smiling when you're on the other end of the phone with them. So as far as your content, like take it seriously. Take feedback for what it is, yes or no. Like don't just like be like, oh, I'm gonna take it all or I'm gonna knock it all. Like read it and go from there. But as far as your content, like do that. Bring joy to your work and your tribe will find you. As far as the advice, my question is going to be, what is your goal with being an author? If your goal is to write, is to make money, there are a certain set of things you can do. I view myself as a kingdom builder. I have built a kingdom called the Aleron Kong slash Labyrinth universe. I've had many authors honor me with the offer to write in my worlds, and honestly, I haven't let them in yet because I'm just not really sure if the emotional points that I would be using up bringing in another fully autonomous human being into my universe and making them whatever, blah, 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 is worth it to me. There are other people that are building empires. There's like even in Lit RPG, right? There's Geneva, she's helping new authors to find their voice. Dakota Crowd has done that. James Hunter has done that. Other people have done that. Michael Anderle has done that on a massive scale. He's awe-inspiring for what he's been able to do. That doesn't necessarily translate into what I want to bring other people under my umbrella, though I may at one point if I'm so moved to do so. But while I am an American, I like boobs, beer, and money. The motivation isn't purely any one of those things, and so while I definitely need to make enough money from this career to take care of myself and my family and live in a way that I want, the essence and my creative control are just as important to me once I've hit my bottom line. So it just sort of depends on what you want out of these things. If your goal is to be a New York Times bestselling author and do whatever, as an indie author, there are certain steps you will have to do. They generally do not let it is like kind of like the one of the last vestiges of propping up the old system, where they don't even count ebooks sold. Like there are New York Times bestsellers that have sold less books than me, and I will never even be potentially counted among their number unless I did certain sort of tricks that indie authors can do to sort of get in on that. It's again, if your goal is to write a story that you want, how important is it that you get great reviews or that you have wide appeal? I know singers that like are like, I just like making my music, that's what makes important, whatever. Others are like, I want to be the next Beyonce. Two very different paths. So I would have to know like what you are trying to do. In general, I will say that as long as you're willing to do a good deal of the first legwork, a lot of authors are receptive if you're not just coming with your hand out, because nobody likes that. But instead you're like, I loved when you did such and such. I'm doing this. Would you mind giving my feedback? And obviously you'll have to write 10 emails to get one response, but that's still not too bad. If you have any specific questions, not about your story, because for legal purposes, I can't ever read that, because this is just the ridiculous society we live in. I'm happy to help, but yeah. So, I mean, I hope any of that was helpful. If I was going to sum it up, write a story that you want to read, and two, be clear about what your goals are for being an author, and then it will be easier to be like, how do I accomplish those specific goals, as opposed to this massive, I'm now an author, how do I become a success? Because if you haven't defined success to yourself yet, it's almost impossible to go there. So, long-winded answer. Hope that didn't bore everybody else, but hope that was helpful to you. All right, so Sharon Schultz. All right, so Sharon, we always get here. Uh, we will get to your specifics if we. I'm gonna go on to the next one. Too many specifics. I can't give the things that I haven't talked about yet. All right. Who is my favorite character to write? Alma. I love Alma. I love the love that they have. After that, Crom definitely is one of my favorite characters to write. Richter basically was me. Like, I like that. I love writing Scion, especially because of the true friendship, the true love between those two guys. Um, I like writing Mama because my mother is pretty intense lady, and I tried to write that. Um, Randolph Phineas was based on someone who was very pivotal in my life, who I never would have written the books without. I went to therapy for 2 years, which is something I recommend to everyone, because life be lifing. Um, and his name was Randy, and so that was an homage, basically to him, about how the Mist Village just wouldn't run without him. When I showed him that and he read it, he goes, "So you had me in charge of latrines." And I'm like, well, I mean, that's a very important point too. As you guys know, I do think pooping is important. Shout out chapter 37. But anyway, so yeah, those are some of my favorites. And honestly, and this is where I mean where it's great to work with other artists, because I always enjoyed writing Crom, because I think So I Married an Axe Murderer with Mike Myers and his accents for his dad are awesome. So I was enjoying writing Crom, hearing that in my head. But it was only when I worked with Nick Podell, and he was like, "Yeah, so you're sort of wanting to be," and then it just immediately switches into this perfect, like, Scottish accent. I'm like, yes, yes, that's it. Um, it's super cool. Like I say all the time, like, while George R. R. Martin is amazing, there's no way it was as fleshed out in his head as just seeing the pure sex, which is Carl Drogo and Khaleesi, on the screen. I just cannot believe that working with those two amazing talents, working with all the amazing talents that went into the Game of Thrones show, didn't flesh it out more for him. I don't think, I think that, like, you can have something amazing, and you can have people that working with actually make it less amazing. But if you're working with somebody else amazing, then you guys can, like, birth something that never would have existed unless you had both poured your energy into that. So that's how I feel. All right. So Sharon, we're gonna take that question off. All right. So Austin David DeBoer says, not trying to be one of the guys if we get any updates. So I've mentioned it several times, but again, we are gonna go from there. And again, Sharon, yeah, love you to death, but okay. All right. So James Smith, do we get any more to see of the Spider Guy in book two? Yes. That's actually, so one of the things that's interesting about being a writer is, when you're writing a book, it doesn't happen all at once. Obviously, you write a book. I mean, I wrote The Land book one in 6 weeks, and that included, like, me rewriting the whole thing like 5 times. It was just this, like, perfect storm or whatever. And then the first 6 books came out in 14 months. So, like, I was averaging like a book every 2.5 months. Like, it was just this insane amazingness, fueled by a lot of emotion and resonance and just excitement and vitality. And it would be amazing if I hit that perfect, like, that grease lightning again. But uh I also sort of recognize, even when I was doing that, like there were times where I would go back and read, and I'd be like, "Oh my god, I forgot that I wrote that when I was, coffeeed out at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday because I just had to pull it out of my." And also, I just recently recognized that like Italians are very passionate, and they do this, and I'm realizing I actually think that maybe they do this because it's like they have so much passion that there's no words. It's almost like they're trying to pull words out, but there aren't. So they just go, mm. Anyway, that was a weird thought I had recently. All right. So, with that being said, I even forgot where I went on the Italian, whatever, on the Italian. I forgot what the question was, but um, that's what it is. All right. So, Sharon, love you to death. We will get to some of those questions some point in time if I see you in person. All right. So Ryan Maxwell says, "What is your goal? What is my goal to write?" So when I initially started writing books, it was a psychological exercise. I knew nothing about the publishing industry. I didn't know independent authors were a thing. The only thing I knew about publishing is what I'd seen in books, and I was like, maybe if I write this book, one day I'll be at a random party where I don't even know how I got invited, and there'll be a bored publisher who's daughter of a king, and she'll take a risk on me, and then we'll be the biggest thing ever. I mean, I basically just knew what I saw from movies. Um, when I started educating myself a little bit more about it, I still never thought this would actually become a career or that I would reach so many amazing people. Um, I instead was like, I want to write a story that I want to read, that I can be proud of. But then I also recognized that that wasn't enough for me, especially as an African American man going through this life. I wanted my tools to be my books to be a tool for social change. And I was like, well, how do I do that? Because I hate being lectured to. Even if it's a valid point, I hate being lectured to. And what I learned from social media is that you've never changed anyone's mind. It's basically a platform for people that are angry to be angry at each other. Um, I think if the world was a healthy place, social media wouldn't exist as much. I take a lot of pride in the Miss Village and the Lit RPG sort of community being healthier by far than most of the sort of things that are out there. And again, shout out to Geneva and the mods and all the other authors and fans that keep it that way. Um, but I was like, so I'm not going to get it by preaching. I'm not going to get it by like pointing fingers. What I came up with is, what about the idea of systematic desensitization, right? Let me write a story where there are weak women and weak men and strong men and people that identify as this and people that identify as this and people that have different religions. And let me try to do that. And maybe by writing a world that doesn't hide from the good or the bad in any one demographic, but shows that any demographic can rise to the highest heights of strength and or fall to the lowest, pits of evil. Um, Maybe I'll reach 1 out of 100 or 1 out of 1,000. Maybe I'll start a dialogue. And honestly, that sort of happened. There's been a lot of people, even like when Black Lives Matter happened, and obviously in this country, everything's so horribly, horribly charged. But at least there was a dialogue. There were people that would message me privately and be like, I hear where you're coming from, but I feel like it's this. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, I get that. I get why you feel that way. The example that I gave is my own evolution in trying to be sensitive to the needs of women in these communities, right? Like I would sometimes get my back up when women would talk about issues with toxicity or issues with sex and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I hear you, but why does it seem like you're yelling at me? Because I didn't do it. And what I came to is like, no, they're even if they are this one person is specifically yelling at me, the purpose is not to yell. The purpose is to be like, I need help. This is a problem. And even like when I got like, okay, well, yes, sexism definitely exists, but it can't exist every day. Not that way, because I'm here every day and I can't see it until I heard it from enough people that I'm like, okay, maybe there's something that I'm seeing differently because I'm a fairly large man and people aren't targeting me. And maybe people are doing things when they think other people aren't watching. And I was like, oh, just because it's not my experience doesn't mean it's not real. And not just like real in your head, that it isn't actually you. If you didn't have like a eye on everything, that I couldn't quantify, we see, oh, this is happening 50 times a day in this one office. um and when I got that it wasn't about me and that other people had very real, very tangible, very scarring experiences on a daily basis, that was when I started thinking, oh, I can be a little bit more sensitive. And the conversations that I had with people immediately changed. And I learned so much more because the women that would share with me, like, they didn't feel like they were running up against this wall that they feel like they always did. There wasn't this like futility. I was like, oh no, I actually want to hear. Um, I shared that to share for like something like on a topic like Black Lives Matter. Um, could that same thing not be applicable to people that do not live through the things that they hear every day? Um, I'm not saying that you trust anyone blindly. I think there's good and bad in every demographic, but I wanted my books to be a tool for um, potentially making the world just a little bit better. And that was the deal. And like I said, I'm a dude. I'm American. I like money. I want to win. Thought it was super cool when I got the Wall Street Journal bestseller. Thought it was super cool when I get certain accolades, and definitely want more of those. I'm all into that. But I am also a believer that, and this changes from person to person. Once you have enough success for you, and it very much differs. If you're trying to be Big Mac Daddy, like some people will never have enough. There's just an empty hole inside of them that they will never fill. Um, but a lot of us, I think, we just want to get laid and watch Netflix and have a good time and maybe get a couple pats on the back. And so once you feel like you reach that level, and that is specific for you, I would really recommend you saying like, well, what else? What is it going to cost me to get more of just the financial? What is it going to cost me um, to pour out books at a certain rate? Is it going to cost me quality? Is it going to cost me time with my friends and family? Is it going to cost me emotional and mental stability? And same thing with like negative reviews. Like if a random person got in my face, I would obviously I will not admit to slapping them, but I am an American. Uh, and yet keyboard warriors seem to have this like power over us. I don't know, because and that's dumb. There's no logical reason that a faceless person writing something should have more impact on you than a person that you don't know but is actually in your face, but somehow they do. So I just try to remind myself of that, and the more I remind myself, the easier it gets. All right, so Tristan Sibley says, how do you feel about my title as the father of American liturgy? I feel great about it. I feel like it was a massive headache for way too long. I feel like there are people that had issues with me for various reasons. And it's sort of like Hillary's emails. You can like her or not, but it's an easy hit. It would have made my life easier without it. But also, I thought it was really cool that a fan gave it to me for a long time ago. And I feel like I deserve it because I feel like, in addition to the books, me and Geneva and my mods, we poured literally hundreds of hours into creating this community. And while I did not invent Lit RPG, which I've said 1,000 times, I do feel like I'm one of the people on the planet that has poured literally man hours and love and energy into cultivating it. And it's grown so much beyond my expectations. And it's with countless people, fans and authors and whatever, that have grown it. But I take a lot of pride in being a very pivotal part of being there in those early years. I do. I take a lot of pride in that. So I feel good about it. All right. Richie Castro says, how did you manage to decide or lose or keep specific characters? This are all more to us, but I imagine it is difficult to lose beloved characters. It was actually difficult for me to write the major loss that happened in book 7. Um, but the story is what matters. I think that you can never enjoy a story unless you can have a certain willing suspension of disbelief. And I think we all want to do that. We all want to agree to not really be how the magician's doing the thing. It's the trick is better without it. But you can't just be like, da 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 da. Like the trick's got to be a little bit better than that. So having stakes is sort of an important thing to write a healthy and successful story, in my opinion. So even though it hurts a little bit, you're showing love to the story. If you want to think about it as raising a kid, it's like, yeah, bad kids could just be genetically off, or is it that they didn't get any discipline because their parents didn't have the balls to say no and tell them that certain things are not acceptable? um, I personally think that it's okay to accept a little bit of pain today for a much greater payoff tomorrow. and I say I probably extend that to my books. So yes, I miss them, but you know they're part of the larger story. If that answers anything. All right. Sharon, so all right, so this is a question I will answer, Sharon. Very good. You thread the needle. Have you thought about adding amenities like living quarters or bathrooms to the core buildings via blah blah blah? Yes, I absolutely will. And that's one of the things that introducing the building points and the settlement points or whatever is going to be very fun, how I've interwoven that with politics. So yes, that will be coming up, but also more fun, magically awesome, the rock level kind of stuff will be happening too. Is Richard ever going to find out who yells Gnomes Rule? Get out of here, Andre Pedro. I think you just wanted some Shaft popcorn. Appreciate you. Tristan Sibley says, will Chaos Seeds bring Earth science to the land? They will bring many things to the land. The question is, I really like the idea, even like, right here, that everything we know about science is based on our observations from our solar system, which if any of you guys have ever seen any cosmos things, is the solar system is a speck of dust and a speck of dust and a speck of dust. Why doesn't it make sense that different galaxies have different natural laws? I mean, we can't fully explain how light moves sometimes. We understand that that observing an experiment changes the activity of the experiment. Like there's so many things that we're just sort of scratching at that we don't quite get yet. And yet we're just so scared to be like, oh, maybe, I mean, this is our best guess so far. I think that a true scientist is someone that not only has knowledge and not only believes in reproducible results, but also understands that there's always more to live. And I will, any of you guys that have known academics, that is not the way they are, and why I don't fit in with many academics or authors or scientists, whatever. And that's why I think I am a true one, because I have the humility to say there's things that we don't know. And not only that, but anything that we do know is only based on the parameters that we currently have. And those parameters are extremely small, even from our basic understanding of the world and the universe that we exist in. This one universe, because who's to say there isn't? I think these things are really interesting. I don't believe that aliens are coming and probing our buttholes, because having seen a butthole, they're just not that interesting. It doesn't make a logical sense that you would do that. But do I believe in alien life and the vastness of the cosmos? How could there not be cells somewhere else, or even something that qualifies as life that doesn't have cells? Like, I mean, it does almost make it like, just by the numbers, it seems like it would make sense to do that. Anyway, so I'm a big believer in possibility, as you know. I'm also a big believer in chaos. It's the name of my series. So yeah. Anyway, all right. So Paul Pollard says, "Are the deaths characters pre-planned, or do they just come as the story evolves?" So that's basically a question of like, are you a pantser or a plotter? That's sort of like the colloquialisms that authors use. Is like, if you're a plotter, it means that you have everything delineated and you never deviate from da da da. If you're a pantser, it means you fly by the seat of your pants and you just sort of write down whatever. I think most authors are probably somewhere in the middle. I think that there's not one path that's necessarily better or worse. I think, as with all things, if you're one extreme or the other, you're probably not going to be as good as if you mix it, and that's why most people do. For me, it was always sort of like, I knew that I wanted to go from point A to point B, but as I'm writing the story, it was never a straight line. It was more like a, well, then I'm going over here. And every once in a while, as I'm getting here and as the characters become more real to me, and I breathe life into them, and it's like I'm being accountable to their personalities and the consequences of the world around them, I do end up at point C, and then I have to pivot. And for me, it's about outcomes rather than control, which anyone that knows me personally would call me BS, because I like a little bit of control. But yeah, that's how I do it. And we are going to be running out of time, so I'm going to run through these. Joseph Clark says, all right, so I think I just answered that. Joseph Clark. James Smith says, will we ever get guns and electronics? If we do, it'll be super nerfed. I think the death of fantasy is when you add guns, because the whole point of fantasy for me, and I think for many, is that you can have individualized power. Guns into the samurai, because suddenly you don't need to have a sword which costs the equivalent of $100,000 to make, and armor that literally would let you cut through 50 people if they don't, and training that takes decades. You just need to be able to point and shoot. Now, obviously, people that can point and shoot, there's a big difference between sharp eyes and whatever, but it's a great equalizer. And fantasy is about magic and striving and pushing through. it's like if you have a world of superheroes, are they superheroes? So I try to avoid it. I do think there's a utility for it. I do think obviously in like Star Wars and sci-fi, there's a huge utility for it. But in general, I like to keep the two separate because I like the struggle. So Joseph Lucas says, have I played the new Spider-Man? I haven't. So Christina Mitchell Wheeler says, which con will be at next? I don't know. Gene will attach to that. And last one, Richie Capsules is trying to thread the spoil meter. Do we think it was possible to see lost characters? Anything is possible. You guys are amazing. I'm on a next one soon. I'm sorry that I didn't get to respond to everybody else. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me say finally, I have never forgotten that this would not be possible without you. Thank you. It sounds weird because I haven't met a lot of you, but I have a love feeling in my heart for the Miss Village. And I'm very proud of what you guys do to make it as a force for good in this world. From the $500,000 that we've raised for charities to the times that I've just seen someone post they're going through a hard time, other people reach out, to the fact that families have literally moved across the country to be closer to each other and send me pictures of how happy they are. I'm very proud and I'm very honored to be part of it. So thank you. I'm gonna head out, and I think I have another panel here. But again, shout out to Geneva. None of this would be possible without my right hand. Shout out to all the mods. Shout out to Evan. Shout out to everybody. Shout out to the mods who were. Shout out to Damien. Shout out to all the awesome authors and the narrators that breathed life into it. Shout out to Nick. Shout out to Luke. Shout out to my mom. Shout out to my girl Maya. Shout out to everybody. So I'm gonna head out. I hope you guys are awesome, and yeah, peace, love, Perfect Margarita.